The Droo Empire was vast, a mighty force that conquered worlds with ruthless efficiency. No planet was safe from their relentless advance, and no species had ever been able to resist their power. Until Earth, the humans had just begun to spread across their own solar system, still learning to harness the basic forces of nature. But their curiosity and intelligence had already attracted the attention of the Droo scouts, who arrived without warning to survey the planet. They saw nothing of value, nothing that should have posed any real threat, just a race of primitive creatures living on a rock floating through space. They figured the humans would be no different from any of the other species they had crushed before. The Droo Empire had always known its strength was unmatched. Their warships towered over entire planets, and their armies were unstoppable. They destroyed with no remorse and moved on to their next conquest without hesitation. But Earth was different. The humans knew they were not prepared for a galactic war. They had no grand fleet, no weapons capable of defending themselves against such a powerful force. But they had something far more dangerous. They had the will to fight, they had the drive to survive, and the ingenuity to make the impossible possible. With no formal army to speak of, they had already developed a network of satellites around their planet, designed to observe the stars and communicate with each other. They had learned how to send signals across vast distances using technology that was far behind what the Droo used, but it was enough to send a message out into the galaxy. As the Droo scouts prepared to make their move, a small team of human engineers sent a simple message back to the Empire, a warning, not one that could be ignored, not one that could be laughed off. They broadcasted across every frequency. They could access a plea for peace, but also a promise of resistance. The message was clear: leave us alone, or face the consequences. The humans were aware of their weaknesses, but they also understood the strength that lay in their ability to adapt and change. So they made it known to the Droo that any attempt to invade would be met with everything they had. Humanity might not have the power to stop the Empire now, but they would fight for their survival, and they would fight in ways the Droo could never predict. As the message reached the farthest corners of space and drifted toward the Droo command center, there was silence for a moment. The Empire's leaders listened with curiosity and amusement to the message. They saw it as nothing more than a sign of desperation from a race that barely knew how to defend itself. They had encountered so many species like this before, so many creatures who threatened resistance before collapsing under the weight of their forces, and so they laughed dismissively. They ignored the warning. They thought the humans were nothing but a brief flicker in the cosmos, soon to be snuffed out. But they were wrong. The humans weren't like the others, and they would soon find that out the hard way. The first wave of Droo soldiers arrived with the sound of thunder as their ships tore through the atmosphere. Their massive warships hovered above Earth's cities, casting long shadows across the land. As the human defenders scrambled to respond, they had expected the invasion, they had prepared for it, but nothing could have prepared them for the sheer scale of the attack. The Droo landed in every major city, at once overwhelming any resistance they encountered. Humans had never fought a war on this scale before. They had no idea what it meant to be up against such power. The streets erupted into chaos as the first human lines were shattered in mere minutes. The sky darkened with smoke and dust as the invaders unleashed their weapons, causing buildings to collapse and fires to rage unchecked in their wake. But the humans didn't surrender. They didn't run. They fought in every alley, every street corner, every crumbling building, using whatever they had at their disposal. They fought like cornered animals, desperate but determined. The Droo were caught off guard by the ferocity of the humans' resistance. They were used to quick conquests and easy victories, but the humans were unlike anything they had faced before. Instead of crumbling in fear, they fought with an intensity that made the Droo question their assumptions. Their tactics were unorthodox, unpredictable, and difficult to counter. Humans didn't rely on strength, they relied on strategy. Their soldiers knew their cities better than the invaders ever could. They used their knowledge of the terrain to set ambushes and traps for the Droo at every turn. Human engineers scrambled to build makeshift weapons from whatever they could find, turning everyday items into deadly devices. They took the invaders' own technology and repurposed it for their own defense. They broke into the Droo's communication lines, sending false signals and misleading the invaders about their movements. The humans fought in ways the Droo could never have predicted. Even when their own weapons were outmatched by the invaders' technology, they kept finding new ways to strike back. The battle wasn't just on the ground. The skies above Earth were filled with combat as human pilots flew old aircraft against the advanced ships of the Droo. Their weapons were crude compared to what the invaders carried, but their tactics were fast and unpredictable. They managed to disable several of the enemy's airships and send them plummeting to the ground in explosions of fire and debris. As the days passed, the humans began to form a resistance, a loose network of soldiers, civilians, engineers, and scientists who worked together to fight back. The resistance was made up of every kind of human imaginable, from military veterans to farmers to school teachers. Everyone had a role to play. Everyone had something to contribute to the fight for their planet. Even as the human forces suffered losses, they grew stronger. They adapted to the invaders' tactics. They learned from every failure and refined their strategy. The Droo were stunned. They had never encountered an enemy that didn't break under pressure. They had never seen a species fight this hard, this fiercely. Their commanders expected Earth to fall quickly. But as the battle dragged on, they realized that the humans were not just surviving, they were learning and evolving faster than the Droo had anticipated. The war was just beginning, and already it was clear to the invaders that they had made a grave mistake. The Droo had underestimated the humans. They thought their advanced technology and overwhelming firepower would be enough to crush any resistance. But the humans weren't fighting like the other species they had conquered before. They fought with creativity, with a will to survive that no amount of weaponry could break. They had no vast fleets, no enormous war machines, but they had something far more dangerous: their minds. They adapted quickly. Their engineers and scientists worked around the clock, developing new strategies and weapons to counter every Droo move. They studied the enemy. They learned from each encounter, and each time they faced defeat, they found a way to turn it into a victory. The Droo Empire was built on strength and fear. It was a hierarchy of power that relied on domination and control. But humanity didn't bow to power. They found strength in numbers. They found strength in cooperation, and that made them a formidable force. The humans learned how to use the Droo's technology against them. They captured Droo weapons and vehicles, reverse engineering them to suit their own needs. They infiltrated enemy bases and turned their own systems into traps. Even their communications were hacked and twisted to confuse the invaders. With every victory, humanity gained more ground, and the Droo began to lose their edge. They couldn't comprehend how a species so young, so technologically inferior, could outsmart them at every turn. Humans had turned their world into a fortress. Each city became a bastion, each neighborhood a stronghold. The streets became battlegrounds where humans used every inch of their surroundings to their advantage. They fought in ways the Droo had never encountered before. Where one might expect humans to run or surrender, they stood their ground and found new ways to make every fight cost the Droo something. Even if they couldn't win, the humans made sure the invaders bled for every inch of territory taken. The Droo's greatest strength, their superior firepower, became their weakness as the humans disrupted supply lines, scattered their forces, and launched surprise attacks from unexpected places. Each victory made them more bold. They weren't just defending anymore. They were going on the offensive. They took the fight to the Droo wherever they could find them. Small teams of humans infiltrated enemy ships, boarding them and sabotaging their engines, while others attacked Droo fortifications with guerrilla tactics. The humans had no grand army, but they had coordination, they had intelligence, they had a spirit that refused to die. And the Droo had no answer for that. Their leadership grew more frustrated with each failed attempt to crush the resistance. The more they pushed, the harder the humans pushed back. They tried to break Earth by bombing cities from orbit, but the humans had already learned how to disable the Droo's orbital weaponry. They tried to launch full-scale invasions from space, but the humans adapted and met them in the skies. The Droo thought they could win with brute force, but they never understood that it wasn't about who had the bigger guns. It was about who could think faster, who could learn quicker, who could outlast their opponent. When the war was about survival, not just domination. And that's where the Droo fell short. The humans weren't just surviving, they were winning. And with each battle they fought, their reputation spread beyond Earth. To the stars, the message was clear. Even to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, humanity was no longer a small, insignificant species. They were a force to be reckoned with, and the Droo Empire would learn that the hard way. As the war raged on, the Droo began to realize they had made a fatal mistake. They thought they could break humanity with overwhelming force. But the more they fought, the more they saw that their power meant nothing in the face of human ingenuity. As the battle stretched across Earth and beyond, the Droo Empire's commanders grew desperate. Their ships and soldiers faced unexpected resistance at every turn, and their once mighty war machine was starting to slow down. The humans had already begun to turn the tide. Slowly but surely, the Droo had underestimated just how resourceful humanity could be. Human scientists and engineers began to unravel the mysteries of Droo technology. Faster than the invaders could update their defenses, the breakthrough came when Maria Alvarez, a brilliant biotechnologist, discovered the key to defeating the Droo's biotech weapons. The Droo had been using genetically modified viruses to weaken human forces, turning their own bodies against them. But Maria found a way to disrupt the viruses and develop a biological countermeasure. She worked tirelessly with a team of doctors and engineers to synthesize a cure that could render the Droo's bioweapons useless. The first test of the cure came on a battlefield near one of Earth's major cities. When a group of soldiers was exposed to a Droo viral weapon, they injected the countermeasure into their bloodstream, and within hours they were immune to the virus. As the first wave of Droo troops advanced, the humans fought back with renewed strength. The Droo's bioweapons no longer had any effect, and for the first time in the war, humanity had an upper hand. They used the countermeasure to inoculate soldiers, civilians, and anyone who could hold a weapon. And with this newfound advantage, the humans pushed back against the invaders. The Droo realized they were losing the war, but they refused to give up. They regrouped and called for reinforcements from the Empire's vast reserves. But even as they tried to rally, the humans were already one step ahead. They had seized Droo ships and tech, and with it came an opportunity to strike back directly at the heart of the Empire. The first major counterattack came when Commander Sarah Lee led a human strike force against a Droo flagship that had been harassing Earth from orbit. The ship was massive, far more advanced than anything humanity had ever created, but Lee's team had studied it for weeks. They knew its weaknesses, they knew its blind spots, and they launched a daring assault on the flagship's engine core using human-made bombs and explosives. They managed to cripple the ship's propulsion system, sending it into a spiraling descent toward Earth. As the ship crashed into the ocean, the humans cheered their victory. But they didn't stop there. They used the momentum of the attack to launch a series of offensives across the galaxy, taking the fight to the Droo in their own territory. Human fleets, small and pieced together but unified by a common goal, struck at Droo supply stations and military hubs. The Empire's supply lines were now in disarray, and their forces stretched thin. Humanity was no longer on the defensive. They had taken the initiative, and with each victory, the Droo found themselves with fewer places to hide. The human advantage wasn't just in their tech or their tactics, it was in their hearts, in their refusal to back down in the face of certain death. They were no longer the underdogs, they were the hunters, and the Droo were their prey. The Droo Empire was reeling. The unexpected turn of events had shaken the foundation of their entire campaign. They had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt to their technology, and even more than that, they had underestimated the unrelenting determination of a species fighting for its survival. As the human counteroffensive gained ground, the Droo were forced to change their strategy. But it was too late. The humans had already taken the initiative, and with each victory they grew bolder, more confident. They no longer sat idly by waiting to be crushed. They had become the aggressors. The humans knew they could not match the full might of the Droo fleet in open combat. Their ships were small, their technology primitive by comparison, but they had learned to fight with what they had learned, to use their environment as an advantage. They had mastered the art of guerrilla warfare in space, striking at Droo supply convoys and hidden bases before disappearing into the vastness of the stars. The Droo didn't know where the next attack would come from. They were losing track of humanity's movements. As their fleets became disjointed and scattered, Commander Sarah Lee led the charge from the front. She was a symbol of human resolve and strength in the face of impossible odds. Her name became a rallying cry for the resistance. She and her team continued to push deep into Droo territory, launching daring raids and sabotage missions with a singular goal: to take down the heart of the Empire and destroy the source of their power. Lee's forces captured several key Droo strongholds, disrupting their command structure and sending their leadership into a panic. Back on Earth, the humans worked tirelessly to fortify their positions while keeping up the pressure on the invaders. The planet became a launching point for human fleets traveling across the galaxy to attack the Droo where they least expected it. But the biggest blow came when humanity managed to infiltrate a high-ranking Droo military base. A team of human soldiers led by Lieutenant Marcus Thompson managed to slip past Droo defenses and disable one of their largest warships. From within it was a massive ship designed for planetary destruction, capable of wiping out entire cities with a single shot. But the humans used their wits and took it down from the inside. Thompson's team planted explosives in the ship's core, causing a chain reaction that destroyed it and sent shockwaves throughout the Empire. When the explosion reached the Droo capital, they knew they had lost their weapon of domination. The symbol of their superiority was gone, and the humans had taken it down with nothing but sheer willpower and determination. The strike sent a ripple of fear throughout the Empire. Its leaders had hoped that humanity's spirit would break under pressure, but it only grew stronger with each battle. The Droo leadership had no way to stop the tide from turning. Humanity had learned from their mistakes, they had adapted, and now they were making the Droo pay for every miscalculation and underestimation. As the humans continued their attacks and liberated more occupied planets, words spread across the galaxy of what was happening. Even the most distant corners of the universe began to hear the tales of the humans who had stood up to the Empire and survived. Humanity was no longer a footnote in the galactic history books. They had earned their place at the table, and the Droo were finally realizing that the true strength of humanity lay not in their technology, but in their unshakable will to never give up. As the war dragged on, the Droo Empire's desperation grew. They had underestimated humanity at every turn, and now they found themselves on the brink of losing everything. The humans had taken their territory, their ships, their key bases, and every battle that had been fought was another victory for Earth. But the Droo were not ready to admit defeat. They had one final card to play. The Empire's scientists had been working on a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, a superweapon so powerful it could erase entire planets with a single strike. It had been designed to wipe out Earth and crush humanity in one fell swoop. The weapon was called the Requiem Bomb, a device capable of triggering a cataclysmic chain reaction that would obliterate Earth and anything in its path. It was the last hope of the Droo Empire to regain control, but it would come at a cost. The Requiem Bomb was still unfinished. Its construction was slow, but once activated it would be unstoppable. The Droo leadership knew it was their final chance to end the war. They made the decision to launch it toward Earth and destroy everything humanity had fought for. The humans had no idea the Requiem Bomb was coming. They had been so focused on winning each battle that they didn't realize the full scale of the threat until it was almost too late. But by then it was too late for the Droo to stop them. Humanity's greatest advantage was their ingenuity and adaptability, and when they learned about the Requiem Bomb, they did what they did best. They figured out how to stop it. Maria Alvarez and her team of engineers worked day and night to find a solution. As the countdown to the bomb's activation began, humanity's last hope rested in their hands. The weapon was held aboard a massive Droo warship still en route to Earth. And even though humanity had taken down many of the Empire's ships, there was no time to waste. Alvarez worked with the best minds Earth had to offer and devised a plan to infiltrate the warship and disable the Requiem Bomb from within. She had discovered that the bomb's activation required a specific series of codes and an override key. The problem was the key was heavily guarded on the Droo ship, and there was no way to reach it without triggering alarms or drawing attention. But the humans had learned to fight in ways the Droo could never predict using guerrilla tactics, and stealth. The plan was simple: infiltrate the ship, disable the security systems, and steal the key. But it was risky, a one-way mission for a small team of soldiers to carry out. Commander Sarah Lee was given the task of leading the team on this most dangerous of missions. She handpicked the best soldiers she knew, and they set off to launch an assault on the Droo flagship. As the mission progressed, the team faced countless obstacles, from hidden traps to fierce Droo soldiers guarding every corner. But the humans pressed on inch by inch. They fought their way through the ship, evading detection and taking out Droo guards with silent precision. Time was running out as they reached the heart of the ship, where the Requiem bomb was kept under the strictest security. The final leg of the mission was the most dangerous, but Commander Lee and her team were determined. The fate of Earth rested on their success. They fought through the final defenses, disabling the ship's power systems and reaching the control room just in time to stop the countdown. As the clock ticked down to zero, the humans managed to override the bomb's activation sequence. The weapon was neutralized. The Droo Empire's final chance to destroy Earth had been stopped in its tracks. But the humans didn't just stop there. They turned the tables once again. They sabotaged the ship's core, sending it into a spiraling crash toward the nearby planet, before escaping just in time as the ship plummeted toward the surface. The Requiem bomb was no more, and humanity had struck a decisive blow against the Empire that could never be undone. With the Requiem bomb neutralized and the Droo Empire's plans in ruins, the humans seized the opportunity to strike the final blow. The balance of the war had shifted entirely now. It was no longer about survival. It was about victory. Humanity had gone from desperate resistance to an unstoppable force, and the Droo Empire knew they had no choice but to fight for their very existence. The human resistance was now a unified front. Every faction, every soldier, every civilian rallied under a single banner, and the war that had been raging for years was coming to a head. The humans had learned the art of war from the best and most unforgiving teacher: survival. They had taken down Droo warships, captured enemy strongholds, and liberated entire planets from the Empire's grip. Now they were ready to strike at the heart of the Empire, the Droo capital, the source of their power, the heart of their military might, the last stronghold of their civilization. The humans made their final push across the galaxy, bringing their combined forces to bear against the Empire's capital world. It was a planet unlike any other, a fortress world, where the Droo had gathered their remaining resources to make their last stand. The humans knew this battle would be unlike anything they had fought before. It would be the end of the war, one way or another. Commander Sarah Lee led the charge. Her fleet, a coalition of human ships and stolen Droo technology, it had been pieced together by Earth's greatest engineers. The fleet moved with precision, each ship a testament to human ingenuity and determination. They entered the atmosphere of the Droo capital world under heavy fire from enemy defenses. But the humans were prepared. Their ships were faster, more maneuverable than the bulky Droo warships, and they used every advantage to slip through the Empire's defenses. Lee's fleet engaged the enemy in the skies above the capital, while ground forces, led by Lieutenant Marcus Thompson, fought their way into the heart of the planet's capital city. The city was a maze of towering spires and heavily fortified structures. But the humans had fought through worse. They had fought in cities, they had fought in mountains and forests, they had fought in space, and now they would fight on the surface of this enemy world with nothing but their wits and their will to win. They tore through the streets of the capital city, battling Droo soldiers and war machines. At every turn, they used every weapon they had, every tactic they had learned over the course of the war. They pushed forward relentlessly until they reached the Imperial Palace, the last stronghold of the Droo leadership. Inside the palace, the remaining leaders of the Empire prepared for a final desperate defense, but they were no match for the human forces inside the palace. Commander Lee and her team broke through the last line of defense. The halls were filled with the sounds of battle as the Droo desperately tried to hold on, but they couldn't stop the humans. They couldn't stop the unstoppable. As the last Droo defenders fell, the human forces breached the command center and confronted the final leaders of the Empire. The battle was over. The humans had won, But the cost was high. Entire cities had been destroyed, countless lives had been lost, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The humans stood victorious over the remains of the Droo Empire, their enemies broken, and scattered their fleets, destroyed their once mighty empire in ruins. The Droo had been defeated, but the scars of war would remain forever. The galaxy would remember the humans, the species that had stood up against a power unlike any other, and had emerged victorious against all odds. The war was over. The Droo Empire was no more. Their capital lay in ruins, their fleets shattered, their once mighty legions scattered across the galaxy in defeat. But while the Empire's fall marked the end of a dark chapter for the galaxy, it also marked the beginning of a new one for humanity. The victory came at a great cost. The war had taken its toll on Earth and the surrounding worlds. Countless lives had been lost, whole cities destroyed. The scars of battle were visible everywhere. But amid the destruction, something new was rising from the ashes. Hope. Humanity had fought and won against a force that no one thought could be defeated. And now they stood at the threshold of a new era, no longer confined to their own world. The humans had proven themselves on the galactic stage. Their name was known across the stars, and their story spread far and wide. The galaxy had watched as they fought and prevailed against the might of the Droo Empire. And in that victory, the humans had earned their place among the stars. The first steps toward rebuilding were slow but steady. Earth's leaders came together to guide their people in the wake of the war. The work was monumental, but the humans had already faced impossible odds and come out victorious. They would rebuild, they would reclaim what had been lost, and they would forge a new future. The human resistance fighters who had fought so bravely now became the heroes of a new age. Their stories were told and retold across the galaxy, inspiring new generations to dream of a future in the stars. The alliance between humans and the freed worlds of the galaxy grew stronger with each passing year. The once fractured resistance became a new galactic council that worked to ensure the horrors of the past would never be repeated. Earth's scientists, engineers, and leaders collaborated with their allies to ensure that the knowledge they had gained from the war would be used to benefit all worlds. Humanity had proven itself not only as a force capable of defending its own survival, but as a protector of the galaxy, a champion of freedom and independence. The humans were no longer just survivors. They were leaders guiding the galaxy toward a brighter future. As the years passed, the scars of war began to heal. The rebuilt cities on Earth and other worlds stood as symbols of resilience and renewal. The once fragile species had become a symbol of strength, unity, and hope. And as humanity's presence spread further into the galaxy, new alliances were formed, new challenges were faced, and new adventures awaited beyond the stars. But perhaps the most important change was not in the galaxies or the planets humanity reached, but in the hearts of every person on Earth and beyond. They had faced their darkest hour and emerged victorious. Their place in the universe was no longer in question. Humanity had proven that it could not be broken, that no matter how powerful the enemy, no matter how insurmountable the odds, they would never give up, they would never bow down, and they would always rise again. The message to the stars was clear. The Droo Empire had been defeated not by the strength of their weapons or technology, but by the strength of the human spirit. And now the galaxy knew what humanity was capable of. The old world had fallen, but in its place a new dawn had risen, a dawn where humanity would lead, and the stars would no longer be out of reach.